You know that feeling when you've been scrolling for 45 minutes and you finally look up and the room feels different, dimmer, somehow? Your eyes are a little dry, your neck has a dull ache, and there's this strange, hollow sensation in your chest, a phantom weight that you can't quite name. You set the phone down, and for a split second, the silence of the room feels aggressive. It's too quiet. So, almost instinctively, you pick the phone back up or turn on the TV. You plug the silence before it has a chance to tell you something you aren't ready to hear. This is the rhythm of the modern soul. We are the most connected generation in human history, yet we are arguably the most distracted, the most anxious, and the most unmoored from a sense of true purpose. We live in a world that is designed from the ground up to harvest our attention. Our focus is the most valuable commodity on earth, and every app, every notification, every breaking news banner is a sophisticated vacuum designed to suck that commodity out of our lives. But there is a cost to this. When we lose our ability to focus, we lose our ability to pray. When we lose our ability to be still, we lose our ability to hear the still small voice that tells us who we are and why we're here. Today, I want to talk about how we find purpose in a world that never stops shouting, and why the ancient Christian tradition offers a roadmap out of the noise that is more relevant now than it has ever been. To understand how to find purpose, we first have to understand what distraction is doing to our brains and our spirits. We often think of distraction as a minor annoyance, a fly buzzing around our heads. But in reality, it's more like a slow-moving flood. It erodes the soil of our character. In the world of tech, there is a term called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same psychological principle that makes slot machines so addictive. You don't know when the hit is coming. A like, a comment, a viral video, a message from a crush, so you keep checking. This constant state of anticipatory stress keeps our nervous systems in a loop of fight or flight. We are biologically wired to pay attention to new information because for our ancestors, new information usually meant a predator or a food source. But now that survival instinct has been hijacked. We are scanning for predators in a forest of digital noise, and it's exhausting us. This exhaustion leads to a purpose deficit. You see, purpose requires depth. It requires the ability to sit with a difficult thought, to master a complex skill, or to stay present in a long, taxing conversation with a friend in pain. But distraction trains us for shallowness. It makes us skimmers of life. We skim our emails, we skim our scriptures, we skim our relationships. We become like a stone skipping across the surface of a lake. We're moving fast, and we look like we're making progress, but we never actually touch the depths. And it's in the depths that purpose lives. Purpose isn't something you find on a curated Instagram feed or in the comments section of a heated debate. Purpose is a fruit of presence. If you aren't present to your own life, you can't possibly fulfill the calling that life has for you. Think about the story of the prophet Elijah. He was a man who had seen fire fall from heaven, a man who had done great things, yet he found himself in a season of absolute burnout and despair. He went into the wilderness, sat under a tree, and essentially told God he was done. He was overwhelmed. God didn't respond with a loud lecture or a flashy display of power initially. There was a great wind, an earthquake, and a fire, the notifications of the ancient world. But the text tells us God wasn't in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire. God was in a low whisper. In some translations, it's called a sound of sheer silence. If Elijah had been wearing noise-canceling headphones or scrolling through a digital feed of top 10 ways to beat profit burnout, he would have missed it. Our world is built on the wind, the earthquake, and the fire. It's built on the loud and the spectacular. But the voice that gives you your identity and your purpose almost always speaks in the whisper. And you cannot hear a whisper if you are constantly chasing a shout. This brings us to this Christian concept of calling or vocation. In our modern secular culture, we've been taught that purpose is something you create. You're told to find your passion, build your brand, and manifest your destiny. It's a very heavy burden because it puts the entire weight of existence on your shoulders. If you haven't found your purpose by 25, you feel like a failure. But the Christian perspective is radically different and honestly much more liberating. Purpose is not something you create, it is something you receive. It's not a destination you reach, it's a relationship you inhabit. The word vocation comes from the Latin vocare, which means to call. This implies two things. There is a caller and there is someone who hears. If your purpose is a calling, then your primary job isn't to be productive or successful in the way the world defines those things. Your primary job is to be attentive. You have to be in a position to hear the call. This is why the struggle with distraction isn't just a productivity issue, it's a spiritual crisis. When we are distracted, we are essentially out of the office when the caller rings. We're so busy managing the noise that we miss the signal. Consider the analogy of a master luthier, a person who makes violins. A violin has a very specific purpose: to create beautiful music. But before it can do that, it has to be carved, sanded, and most importantly, tuned. A violin that isn't tuned is just a piece of wood and wire. It might be expensive, it might look great on a shelf, but it isn't fulfilling its purpose. Much of our lives are spent trying to make the violin look cool or valuable to others, but we never take the time to let the master tuner work on the strings. The tuning happens in the quiet. It happens in the moments where we put the phone in another room, close our eyes, and say, "I am here. Speak, for your servant is listening." But let's be real. The quiet is terrifying for a lot of us. Why? Because when the noise stops, the anxiety starts. When you aren't distracted, you have to face the things you've been running from. Your insecurities, your past mistakes, your fear of the future, the existential weight of your own mortality. Distraction is a form of self-medication. We use the dopamine loop to numb the pain of being human. This is why so many of us feel a sense of identity anxiety. We don't know who we are without the feedback loop of the internet. We've outsourced our identity to the likes of strangers. The Christian wisdom here is found in the desert fathers and mothers, monks and nuns in the 3rd and 4th centuries who realized that the noise of the Roman Empire was killing their souls. They fled to the desert, not to escape the world, but to face themselves and God without any distractions. One of them, Abba Moses, famously said, "Go, sit in your cell, and your cell will teach you everything." For us, the cell isn't a stone room in the Egyptian desert. It's the quiet moments of our day. It's the drive to work without a podcast. It's the morning coffee without the news. When you sit in that quiet, your cell will show you your distractions. It will show you your idols. It will show you how much you rely on the approval of others. And while that's uncomfortable, it's the necessary surgery required to find your purpose. You have to strip away the false self, the version of you that is curated for the screen, to find the true self that God actually called by name. So how do we practically live this out? How do we find clarity in a world that feels like a permanent strobe light? It starts with intentionality, or what the ancient church called rule of life. A rule of life isn't a set of legalistic laws, it's a trellis. If you want a vine to grow up and bear fruit, you need a trellis to support it. Without it, the vine just crawls along the ground and gets stepped on. Our lives are the same. Without a trellis of spiritual habits, our purpose gets trampled by the mundane demands of the digital age. One of the most powerful habits we can reclaim is the Sabbath. Now, I'm not just talking about going to church for an hour on Sunday. I'm talking about a 24-hour period where you intentionally stop. You stop producing, you stop consuming, you stop scrolling. You declare that your worth is not tied to your productivity. The Sabbath is a weekly protest against the attention economy. It's a way of saying, I am a human being made in the image of God, not a data point for an algorithm. When you practice this kind of intentional rest, something miraculous happens. Your vision starts to clear. You begin to see people as people, rather than obstacles or content. You begin to see your work as a way to serve, rather than a way to climb. You begin to see the small, beautiful details of your local neighborhood that you've been driving through at 60 miles per hour for years. This is the beginning of purpose. Not a grand, global mission, but a local, humble faithfulness to the life right in front of you. Another key is the concept of deep work, viewed through a spiritual lens. The secular world is starting to realize that multitasking is a myth. Our brains can't actually do two things at once. They just rapidly switch back and forth, losing power with every switch. In the Christian tradition, this is similar to what we call singleness of heart. Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." In the original language, pure means unmixed or undiluted. A pure heart is a focused heart. When you are doing your job, do it with all your heart, as if you're doing it for the Creator Himself. When you are talking to your spouse, be there 100%. When you are praying, be there. This singleness of focus is where excellence comes from, and it's where purpose is felt. If you want to find your purpose, stop trying to find the one big thing and start doing the present small thing with total devotion. We also have to address the identity aspect of purpose. And many of us are looking for purpose because we are trying to justify our existence. We feel like we have to do something great to be someone. But the gospel flips this. It tells us that we are already someone because we are loved by the one who made the stars. You don't work for an identity, You work from an identity. When you know you are a beloved child of God, the pressure to be a success evaporates. You are free to be a failure in the eyes of the world if it means being faithful to your calling. You are free to take a lower-paying job that allows you to be more present for your children. You are free to spend your weekends volunteering in obscurity rather than building a personal brand. True purpose is often found in the things the world considers a waste of time. Let's talk about the long game. Purpose isn't a flash in the pan, it's a slow burn. We live in a microwave culture that wants instant results. We want the purpose-driven life in a 30-second TikTok summary, but God is a crockpot God. He works over decades. He works through seasons of waiting, seasons of silence, and seasons of what feel like distractions, but are actually preparations. Think of Joseph in the dungeon or Moses in the backside of the desert for 40 years. They weren't wasting time, they were being formed. If you feel like you are in a waiting room right now, if your life feels mundane and the big purpose hasn't revealed itself yet, don't despise the quiet. Use this time to cultivate the inner life. Build the muscles of character, patience, and prayer, because when the call comes, you want to have the character to sustain it. A bridge is built long before the first car drives over it. Your quiet years are the foundation of your purpose years. Relationships are another area where distraction is killing our purpose. We are the most connected, but also the loneliest. We have 500 friends, but no one to call at 3 a.m. when our world is falling apart. Purpose is almost always communal. You cannot fulfill your calling in a vacuum. In the Christian view, we are the body. A hand has a purpose, but it only works if it's attached to the arm. If you are feeling purposeless, look around you. Who needs you? Who is suffering in your immediate circle? Sometimes your purpose for the next hour is simply to listen to a lonely neighbor or to wash the dishes for an exhausted roommate. We often miss our purpose because we're looking for something heroic, while God is calling us to something hospitable. Purpose is found in the sacrament of the present moment. As we wrap this up, I want to challenge you to a digital fast. Not forever, but for a moment. Try taking 1 hour a day where the phone is off. Try taking 1 day a week where you step out of the stream. In that silence, ask the big questions. Not, what do I want to do? But who am I called to be? And how can I serve? The world will tell you that you are falling behind. The algorithm will tell you that you are missing out. But there is a peace that passes understanding, waiting for those who are brave enough to be bored, brave enough to be quiet, and brave enough to be unproductive in the eyes of a frantic world. You were not created to be a consumer of content. You were created to be a co-creator with the divine. You were created for good works, prepared in advance for you to do. But those works are rarely found in the noise. They are found in the stillness. So put the phone down for a bit. Breathe. Look out the window. Notice the light hitting the trees. Notice the person sitting across from you. The caller is speaking. The question is, are you listening? Finding purpose in a distracted world isn't about adding more to your to-do list. It's about clearing the to-do list so you can finally see the to-be list. It's about moving from the infinite scroll to the eternal soul. And in that shift, you will find that the purpose you've been chasing has actually been chasing you all along.